Hey, 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 hey!
It's about to get crazy. It's about to go down. It's about to get crazy. It's gonna be loud. This is our house. We do what we wanna. We'll blow the roof up. Everybody's coming. It's about to get crazy. It's about to go down. It's about to go down.
You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. Life is not easy. Life isn't fair. It never was, and it never will be. A good life takes grit, because the best things in life come from hard work, sacrifice, resolve, determination, and perseverance. Because grit means never quitting. It means coming back time and time again until you succeed. So on this show, we talk hunting, we talk outdoors, we talk conservation, we talk family and life. We talk fitness, and we talk strength, strength of body, strength of mind, and strength of character. Prioritize who you are and who you want to be. Get gritty, because life isn't fair, and a little grit can make all the difference. You are the Dallas Hemeyer. Now, there's not very many people with eyeballs like yours. They're like, dude, that guy has crazy eyes. That's the dude with the eyes.
I'm like, Kyrgyzstan? And he's like, yeah. He's like, you've been there, haven't you? I was like, yeah, I've been there. He's like,
that's where people go to die.
well, I'm really worried about my life. Like, I don't think I'm going to go. And I was like, I just heard a story. I don't know if I should tell it on the podcast.
Tell it. I want to hear it.
It's brutal. Beheaded the outfitter. And so they came back from hunting into camp. The money was gone and everyone was dead.
Which place was this? Because I never want to go there.
I think this was Kyrgyzstan.
All right. Here goes nothing.
And we got the arrow.
I think we're in focus.
We got the Valkyrie being displayed here right in the center.
I do like that arrow. I like that arrow. All right.
Should we get it balancing front of center? Right.
Do it. That looks good. Like, I am curious where it balances on that. Is it balance worthy? Look at that. Yep, for folks that are watching. There you go. Valkyrie. FOC. Yeah, I've been shooting this arrow for 3 or 4 months now. This is a 505 grain arrow and 200 grain tip. I just like how it handles in the wind. It's unreal. And I love the Valkyrie broadhead, which I've beat like a dead horse. And just to make it clear, Dallas, I'm not paid by Valkyrie. I just think it's legit.
I will say it's one of the most streamlined arrows I've seen. Yeah. I was surprised at how small the diameter of this arrow shaft is. I mean, it's really small.
It's tiny. Yeah. I mean,
and these fletchings, I thought these originally, because these are the AAEs, correct?
Yep.
And I thought they were
bigger.
I thought they were an inch tall, and they're actually a lot smaller. Because they'd said about, I'd heard about, the wind drift and everything, and I was like, well, they're using a 4-fletch. They got quite a bit of surface area on the back of that arrow, but they're actually about half the height of like a blazer vane and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. No, 505 grains with a 200 grain tip, 250 spine. It's tuned perfect out of my RX1, my Hoyt RX1, and it's like a laser bolt. I can't shoot the blocks out there, and there's a bag target as well, because the arrow goes through the target and the fletchings get stuck inside the cottony fill or the foam.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
Keep wrecking my fletchings.
Burning up fletchings every time you shoot.
I pretty much got to shoot a Reinhardt or my or just a dense foam target.
Yeah,
or
the Mackenzies are pretty dense.
Yeah, I got to try that.
Yeah, and also this fire knock. That's definitely the smallest knock I've ever seen. Dude. And it's lighted, which
right. Yeah, I mean, that's something I want to have the guy on from Fire Knock. Or at least someone maybe that is really familiar with him. I don't know a ton about him, but Brent Hahn built this arrow and stuck that Fire Knock on it for me, and it's like at first it was a little weird because there's no on-off switch or anything else, right? But you just do this, just tap the arrow, the knock on a hard surface, and it'll turn the not light on, and it'll turn it off.
Yeah.
When I first got it, they didn't. I had to use quite a bit of force, but once I started shooting them for a few rounds, they come on and off really easy. So my mistake was I let the battery run dead because I shot them in the bright sunlight, and they're not a big knock, right?
No.
They're tiny, and then you can see the throat of the knock is right at the shaft. And that's why Brent designed these, why he likes these lighted knocks, is because you don't lose any accuracy with the knock back there.
Yep, and I remember I started out shooting the Luminox originally, and didn't have super good luck with those. It seems like they turn on most of the time, couldn't get it. They really had to like fit your arrow perfectly. Mm-hmm. And then I found the Nocturnals, and I really liked the Nocturnals. I've never had any problems with those turn on every time, super bright. But the throat of that nocturnal knock is, I think it's as far back as the end of this knock to where the string sits inside that knock. This is substantially tighter up against the back of the arrow, which I can definitely see the advantages of that. You know what I mean? Just getting it closer to that center point, keeping everything tighter to the arrow.
Yeah.
It's cool.
A hole the full length of the animal. That's great too. I shot that bear. I want to show you that film afterward. So far, so good though. I'm excited. We should probably introduce you, since people listening, watching, since we just started rambling on.
That's true.
Yeah. You are the Dallas Hemeyer. Is that how you say it? Hemeyer?
Hemeyer.
Is that
Dallas
because you guys
Hemeyer
shucked hay as a family business back in the 200 years ago, 400? Like, what's Hemeyer? Is it German?
It's German.
It is.
Yep.
Are those German eyes? Because every time someone sees a photo or a video of you, they're like, dude, that guy has crazy eyes.
Yeah, they're pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's definitely
your trademark.
Yeah. Most comments come about the eyes.
Yeah. That's how you got your Australian wife.
They're either pretty blue or freaky blue. Some people are like, whoa, your eyes are a little too like clear and blue. They kind of freak me out.
They definitely stand out. There's not very many people with eyeballs like yours. Right?
No, I don't think. Well, it's normal. It's normal to me because, both my parents have super blue eyes. All my siblings have.
They're not just blue, dude. It's something like, they're like deep, deep pools of mystery. Like, it's the size of your pupil, too. Like, yeah. My wife, every time she sees a picture, she's like, Dallas has crazy eyes. Every time. Like, She can't look at a photo of you without commenting on your eyeballs.
That's funny.
You were at the house, and then you left, and she's like, that's the dude with the eyes. That's right. So
that's funny.
But Dallas Hemeyer, you for people that don't know, you were on an earlier episode. Do you know what number it was? We had you on it when we were at the sheep show. You and Price.
I have no clue.
Price.
Was it?
And if
around
people missed that episode, they have got to go back and listen to it, because everyone that's listened to that gave it the time told me that it was a great show. They really enjoyed it.
That's good, because I don't think I ever followed up with you on that. I was going to ask you. It's like, how did that go?
Yeah, no, it was you didn't get much feedback from people directly.
They
didn't
no,
say,
I did get a handful of messages.
Handful. Okay. Well, where is it? Do you hunt? How to make a hunter? Okay. I'm still looking for it, folks that are listening. There it is. Hunt the Experience with Jason Price and Dallas Hemeyer. Episode 310.
310. I was thinking 210, but you're way past that.
Yeah.
What episode is this?
It is probably 350.
356. Dang.
Or 5.
And how many years have you been doing this?
3 years.
3 years?
Yeah. The first year, though, was like a lot more just like I got a show out whenever I could.
That's when I really started like in this industry, about 3 years ago.
Yeah. Me too. Before that, I just hung out with Ben and Anthony and hunted in my backyard in Oregon and didn't travel the world so much, you know?
Oh, I didn't.
I did for work. I did for
This is
for my
all. This is
career.
all a new thing.
Yeah. Same here, like the traveling for hunting. And I said this in a post the other day because I posted a photo on Instagram of being out there in Queenstown in New Zealand. And I was like, hunting is a lot more than people realize. Hunting has taken me to places of the world I never thought I would go. And not only does it take me to those places in the world I never thought I'd go, but it takes me to the remote places of the world. So not only do I find myself in Queenstown, New Zealand, but then I find myself in the Southern Alps where, you know, how many people can say they've been there and done that?
Exactly. I was just talking to David in the hall, and he's like, "Hey, he's like, you know, someone hit me up. You know, they want me to come to Tajikistan." I'm like, Tajikistan? And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You've been there, haven't you?" I was like, "Yeah, I've been there." He's like,
"That's where people go to die."
"Well, I'm really worried about my life. Like, I'm not. I don't think I'm going to go." And I was like, "You know, the thing about most of these places, especially when you're hunting, is you're in that place, but you're also in the remotest areas in that place. Like, you're not seeing a whole lot of people. Like, you get there at the airport, you're in the city, you get in a car, and you drive very far away from civilization to the middle of nowhere, which is..."
Dude, I've watched
but I have heard some. I just heard a story. I don't know if I should tell it on the podcast.
Tell it. I want to hear it.
It's brutal. Yes, one of my buddies, this guy's actually coming to Russia with us next September. We're going to Russia to do, I think, a 2 to 3 week hunt. We're going to do both tur and chamois in one hunt. So 3 species in Russia, like serious, maybe like the most hardcore like mountain hunting I've ever done.
Really?
But this guy was in maybe Kyrgyzstan, was in a camp and hunting. For sure he was hunting Ibex and possibly Marco Polo. And he brought, I think it was $20,000 cash and gave it to the outfitter. And while they were out, word had got out that this guy brought cash into camp, and some Chinese rebels came and beheaded the outfitter and killed everyone else in camp. And so they came back from hunting into camp, and the money was gone and everyone was dead. And then they called in.
Which place was this? Because I never want to go there.
I think this was Kyrgyzstan.
Okay.
It's
fitting my stereotype. Continue.
And yeah, they ended up catching the guys. They called in, but man, can you fathom that?
No.
Neither can I.
Like, it's just money. Like, can I keep my head? Like, I just don't. Yeah. That's why the stands. That's why the stands worry me. Any country that ends in the word "stan" is. Can you name them? You've been to a lot.
Tajikistan,
Kyrgyzstan, Afghanistan, Pakistan.
Yeah, we're supposed to go to Pakistan in March.
So for people who don't,
Jason's going to Kyrgyzstan like in November. Jason's going to Kyrgyzstan, and then he wants to go to Pakistan in March. But I don't know if we're going to do that. See, the wives aren't very happy.
I wonder why. Yeah, I for people who don't know, Dallas, tell people real quick, kind of, because you're just an interesting person to talk to, because you're really young, and
I
how old are you now?
turned 26 in New Zealand last week.
Nice. So
I actually feel like I kind of got over a hump there.
Beyond 25. Yeah,
but I'm an old soul. I got 2 kids. I've been married for 6 years.
Old. I've been married like 22.
I think I have
23.
I've got
some gray hair.
I've got a lot of gray hair.
Well, that's
like
one thing.
A lot of gray hair.
You have been around the world, and I really think traveling the world and seeing different parts of the world certainly changes someone's perspective. Yeah. It causes you, I think, to grow up a lot faster. I feel like it would be so cool if every teenager or high school student was required to go live in a third world country and then come back and tell me about how capitalism is bad and
exactly
America needs
holy cow
some socialism or whatever.
Yep.
Because going to those different countries, it completely changes your perspective about the United States, and I think really gives you a true appreciation for it. And it's hard to get that if you live in the bubble. Like,
That's the craziest part is, for those of you who have no idea what I'm doing here, I lived in the bubble, and all I wanted to do was hunt elk and mule deer, and
in your backyard.
I lived in Arizona, and then we moved to Utah when I was 10.
What part of Arizona?
Mesa.
Okay.
And we moved to Utah when I was 10, and that's kind of when I was exposed to all of this.
Okay.
Right in the center of this beautiful valley. I got rivers on both sides of the house, mountains, elk, mule deer.
And
my neighbor,
a hunting mecca.
Yeah, I walk over to my neighbor's house to meet this Jerry Lee, old dude, walk into his house and just
animals,
giant bucks all around the room. And then I go in the basement, sheds everywhere. And I was just like, I don't know what this is. I don't really know what's going on here, but I want to do this. Mm-hmm. And so then, it's funny because I've went through, and my parents have always said this, like in sports through school, I played every sport for 1 year. Like played soccer, played football, played basketball.
So you're a quitter.
Well,
no. It wasn't your thing.
I liked to do everything.
Yeah.
And
no, I could see that.
But hunting, my parents, and my dad was always like, you need to get to college. Like, we got to chill out on this hunting thing. Like, this is excessive. Like, you don't think about anything but hunting.
Yeah.
And ever since I was young, I would say that hunting has been the one thing that's like that driving force. Like, a lot of things have come and gone. But
oh yeah, when I first met you in Montana a year ago, what was awesome was there's few people that nerd out on, seeing elk or deer or animals the way that another hunter that's really passionate about it nerds out, And so when we and you are sitting there geeking out over 500 elk in a field, like screaming their heads off, and we're just like, do you hear that? And if I'm there with, like, let's say someone who's not as dialed, like my wife, who's like, okay, yeah, there's some animals making noise. Great. You need to be there with someone who really gets as excited as you do about it.
Yep.
And you get really excited.
John Dudley actually commented on my fallow deer video. Did you see that? After I shot my fallow deer buck. And he said, wow. And then he said, I think that you and Fred Eichler need to have a battle, and I'm not sure who would win. And I thought that was pretty spot on. I was like,
oh yeah,
that's actually, we probably have a similar reaction when these things happen.
You go nuts, which makes it fun. You go nuts on behalf of other people too.
And see, so man, we keep jumping off track. So hunting a lot, started filming. Just my buddies, like right when I graduated, saved up, bought a little
high school.
Yep, high school. Bought a little Canon
G4,
G10.
Okay,
maybe G20.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think the G30, G40 was out, and I just started filming everything. And I never did anything with the footage, but
you filmed it.
I was obsessed with capturing.
Yeah.
And I was just filming all of our mule deer hunts, all of our elk hunts. I filmed, a couple of my buddies shoot deer, some cow elk. And I really got into the photography as well. And I've never went to school for any of this stuff. I've done a few little classes since then. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, I was just really passionate about it. And my passion for the cameras was almost on an equal playing field to my passion for hunting. Mm-hmm. And so I combined the two. And when I was filming, I felt like I was hunting with my cameras, and I got all the exact same feelings, and it didn't matter to me. And people were like, you're not really hunting anymore. Like, don't you ever get
behind the bow?
Don't you want to? And I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, yeah. I do love it. And every chance I get, I'll get behind the gun or the bow. But I'm telling you, I'm shaking just as bad with the camera as I am with the bow. There's no difference for me. The feeling in the situation is the same for both. So
in July, I'm mid-July, mid to late, I'm releasing 20 something videos, 25 maybe, of gritty hunting videos, day by day videos, right? I've been talking about it for a while, and I know I said May, and then I said June. Now I'm saying July, but
is this the moose? Some of the moose hunts,
yeah,
and some of that? Yeah.
And you filmed that Montana hunt, and there's this shot where Casey's at full draw, the bull elk is there. I don't know where Aaron was, but there you are filming it in slow motion, and it is one of the sickest shots. Like just the bull, it's snowing. And it's just, and the bull pops in the snow, and he's coming over, and he just just slow motion walking up, and then he sees, it looks right at the camera area, and he's at full draw, and Casey's steady, and then that arrow goes, poof, and just spins through the air toward the elk, and you're just like, it's just, it puts you in that moment. And that's what I mean when you capture that kind of stuff on film. I think it's as rewarding as hunting on your own as well.
Oh,
if you're
100%.
into that, if it gets you excited, if the camera gets you excited, I can easily. I mean, I like filming other people.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm always hunting. I hunt a lot.
Well, you have. So tell folks that are listening, because the earlier episode you told a story which people need to go listen to, where the engine went out on an airplane over the mountains of
Mongolia,
which.
The Mongols over the
Which sounds like a horrible, horrible domestic flight on airplanes that barely run.
I mean, it looked pretty good from the outside. Props always make me a little nervous. It's like, haven't we gone to jets? But I think that Mongolia bought all the prop planes.
Yeah.
Some of these other countries that they're not ready for.
Yeah.
Or they don't have Jet A or
so
something.
people need to go back and listen to that story.
Did I talk about Africa?
No, I don't.
Probably did.
About
the emergency room?
Well, what I want. Okay, we need to get to that, but I want people to know a little bit about. So tell folks some of the places you've been in the species that you've filmed and even hunted.
So I started out filming in the States, and that didn't last very long. And then I got in with Jason Price. And he took me on my first international hunt. Well, I met him in Mexico, and then after that we went to Turkey to hunt Ibex. And then after that we went to New Zealand. And man, it just so happened to be just kind of the clientele and the group that I got entangled with. And now I pretty much, I would say 95% of my filming is international. Like,
really?
Yep. Just pretty much everything. So started off in Turkey for Bezoar Ibex. Then we went to New Zealand. Then after New Zealand, did quite a bit of stuff in Canada. Did some stuff in Alaska. Then I went over to Mongolia. We did all the Argalis and the Ibex over there. And going back there in October.
Where did you see the snow leopard?
In Mongolia. And in Tajikistan.
And people can see that video. Right?
Yep.
On your
Tajikistan
YouTube
video.
channel.
Yep.
So people who don't know, you've taken all these travels and all these places you've been, and you've cut film for that.
Yep.
And you have a YouTube channel called
The Experience.
And there's some really well done eye candy like hunts on there from around the world with species that I'll probably never hunt.
Yep. There's some cool stuff. Thank you.
So the snow leopard video is pretty cool. How did it do? Like video, like views wise?
It did good, but the better one hasn't been released yet.
Oh,
and so
because I saw,
I still have people that call me and they're like, who have seen this footage and they're like, dude, have you called Nat Geo yet? Like, this is so how it went.
So explain to people too who don't realize what we're talking about in regards to snow leopard.
So we're talking about a cat that I believe lives in Asia, Mongolia, China. It's endangered, although I asked myself, how endangered can it be? Because I've seen multiple snow. But yeah, it's an endangered cat, and Nat Geo or Planet Earth did a documentary on the snow leopards. Most people have probably seen it who watch those kind of shows. And man, part of me wants to say they filmed for 5 years to get the amount of footage they got, which I don't think was a whole lot. And I just watched that before I went there.
What's that show with Ben Stiller? Walter Smitty or Smitty? What is that show? The movie. They do that movie. You know what I'm talking about?
Is there snow leopard in it?
Yeah. Yeah. So the dude goes up in the mountains, and I think who plays that part? Some like epic photographers. It like in the story, he's like legendary, and he spends like I don't know, years up in a mountain trying to photograph a snow leopard for the first time. And,
I spent like 2 days, and so I'll tell you the story. So we got a flat tire. So the outfitter, the guides,
The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Yeah. And
there's an awesome snow leopard scene in there.
Yeah. So it has Sean Penn is the photographer, and he's like all like how I picture you, like all haggard and worn down, but like dressed like a hippie in the mountains, and like really feeling like Donnie Vincent.
Yeah.
And capturing.
Donnie's awesome.
So but you do more flat brim, 25-year-old stuff.
Yeah. I'm about half the age of most of these people.
But yeah, in that film, it's so.
But I'm not a flat brim. I'm going even. No, this is.
Yeah.
I'm going even more old school. The boonie.
Boonie. It's true.
Because I always.
You transcend.
I always have the boonie.
We've talked about that. It makes perfect sense. It's like a trad.
I can't film with these hats. The camera hits the brim of these hats every time, and I've always got it flipped backwards. And
you can't do that in the heat of the moment.
The boonie, I'm out in the sun.
Keeps the sun out. Yeah.
Keeping the sun off my neck, my face. It just bends right up. I mean, it works.
You make it look good.
Yeah, it works for me. I like it. It's kind of become
your trademark.
And now everybody comments on it. So when I'm going, I'm like, oh, I gotta have the boonie.
Okay. Well, I gotta quit interrupting you because my audience is going to be pissed off. So,
all right, back to snow leopards.
Yep.
So we're sitting there, got a flat tire. We're glassing this big long ridge. Maybe we'll even put this footage on this podcast.
Sweet.
And have you seen the footage?
Yes, like 10 times.
Yeah, you have seen it. And so we're glassing this ridge, looking for Altai Ibex. Not seeing any. This is supposed to be a hot spot. So Hunter's over on the other side. Guide's fixing the tire. He was glassing. Now he's fixing the flat tire. And the hunter left me. He left his Swarovski BTX, so the spotting scope with the double eyepiece. And I'm taking pictures and filming over there. And I'm like, oh, I got to try this thing out. I mean, just came out. You know, he was probably one of the first ones to get it. So I'm sitting there just beating up this ridge. It's awesome. It's like 30 power binos. Scanning this ridge. It was perfect. And so I'm scanning this ridge, and then all of a sudden I kind of come to this. No Ibex. Haven't seen a single Ibex, which is weird because usually they're in pretty big groups. You know what I mean? When there's Ibex there, you can spot them. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I'm like, and I see this face kind of in this, like, sun's kind of hitting just this brim outside of the cave. There's like a little bit of grass. I see this face, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, holy cow.
It's through the spotter.
Yeah, through the spotter. And I'm like,
what's it look like?
I'm like, is that a mountain lion? And then I'm looking back at it, and then I see another one. Yeah, and I mean, I can tell it's a cat. And then I'm like, there's no mountain lions in Mongolia? And then for some reason, I'd never thought of, where snow leopards lived or anything like that. I mean, you always thought, China and Nepal. And then all of a sudden, crossed my mind. I'm like, is that two snow leopards? And so I ran over to the guide, and I'm like, hey, are there snow leopards in Mongolia? And he's like, yes. And I was like, well, I just found two of them. And so we run back over, and he's like, oh my gosh. He's like, you have no idea how rare this is. And I'm like, I do. I just watched the Nat Geo show. This is crazy. And I pull out my phone scope, and so I'm filming with the phone scope. And then Matt comes down, the hunter, and Matt's looking at him, and he's like, do you got your drone? And I was like, yeah. And they're way up this ridge. The phone scope's pretty cool. And so I pull out my little Mavic Pro out of my backpack, fly it up there, and when it gets probably like halfway, they just walk in their cave. And so I get up there. And as I get up there, I see the battery's at like 25%. I'm like, what? I'm like, already? And it's way up this ridge.
Yeah.
And so I get it all the way up there, and from a distance, you could like, it was like a couple hundred yards away, you could see these two little bodies like running the cave. But, it's like a wide angle
2 dots.
drone.
Like,
you
yeah,
don't see
who
anything.
cares?
And so I get it, and I'm like by the cave, and the battery's like down to like 20% now. And I'm like, I was like, I should probably get this back. We're pretty early in this hunt to be crashing the drone. And so I go back, and then I'm like, I'm going to go one more time. So I dive down like right, maybe like 10 feet from the cave is what it looks like.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I see this cat start appear from out of the darkness. And I was like,
Out of the cave.
and then I lose it. And so now I'm like trying not to crash the drone because I'm shaking so bad. And then I thought it was going to jump and like swipe my drone down because it's like doing this cat crawl right towards it. And I don't know how I literally am like violently shaking at this point.
Right.
Because I realize like what is getting captured. Now battery's down 15%. And so the cat runs out of the cave, and I got the pan as it was running. And then it's maybe got like probably 100 yards to go over. And somehow I fluidly panned and started pulling up. And I kept this cat in the center of the frame 4K as it's like jumping up these rocks and cliffs all the way up to the top, and then walks over. And then I bring the drone up above the mountains, and it's just like Mongolia. and then at this point I look, and I've got 10% battery, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got like a shot people would probably pay like hundreds of thousands of dollars for, were 10% and dropping. And I'm talking you max distance on the drone. As I was going up, I think it was like maximum altitude reach. And so I'm like full blown, like, come on. I think I started running up the hill to like try and get closer. I'm like, please get back. And like when I caught that thing, I just like looked at Matt, and we were both like, yes. I mean, it was, I don't know. I don't know if
you were kind of lucky the way you caught the footage. It wasn't so much your skill.
Oh, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's guys who have spent 4 years sitting out there freezing to death. Or, I mean, when we were there on that hunt, we ended up shooting that Ibex in a different place. There were no Ibex there, surprisingly. It was 105 degrees. And then we went and hunted Altai sheep in Mongolia as well, up towards right on like the Russian border. And it was like 40s. So we went from 105 to 40s.
Wow. Yeah, dude, it's really beautiful footage. And to see an animal like that and see it come out and then bound up the mountain, it's like, wow.
Way bigger than I thought they were.
Yeah.
I thought they were like oversized lynx.
Yep.
Is what I was thinking.
No.
I wasn't thinking like full-size mountain lion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With thick hair and a tail that looks like it's about yay thick.
Yeah, they're incredible looking.
I mean.
And then, so there were no Ibex on the mountain right there where they were at.
No, I mean, I think we went around the backside and saw a couple, but like usually that's like go-to spot, and for sure
they've been
hunted, so what we figured
out.
So what we figured it was a female and her kid, her kid. So we think it was just the mom, and I'm sure her little
yearling or whatever.
Yeah, I'm sure that the little one just stayed in the cave, and mom was kind of just distracting us. And
so you're still sitting on that footage. You're still hoarding it.
Well, see, the thing is, no, it's done. It needs to be, but so that was a hunt just for like a private client.
Yeah.
To where I just went over, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going on
a trip, and
I'm going on
you to
the biggest trip of my life. You know what I mean? I'd really love nice photos. You know what I mean? I want you to photograph it all and film it." And so I made it all for him, and it's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, he told us we can use it. So we just need to package it just a little bit differently. Yeah, it's like a super. You know what I mean? It was like a longer film. Just chop up a few things, but it's cool. I mean, Mongolia's crazy. It's way different than I thought. And we were hunting at like 10,000 feet, which I don't know why I was thinking Mongolia was kind of flatland. You know what I mean? But we were
cool. You got the Mongolian steppe and its plains, and you've got Genghis Khan and all the horse riders and the nomadic tribes. And so you have that whole in your mind. But when I think Mongolia, I also think insane mountains at the same time.
That's some of these places I'm going. I'm telling you,
You didn't do well in history, did you?
I know
geography, but now you're a pro.
Oh, you should hear my wife's perspective on this. She's like, they don't teach you anything in the States. She's like, how would you not know that? I'm like, let's not go into this. Right now.
I went to a Utah public school.
I've been there, so I don't.
So for people listening, that don't know, your wife is international.
She is. My wife is from Australia.
So Australia, and I was just talking about this earlier today. You saw my post on Instagram.
Oh yeah.
You just got back from New Zealand.
Meat pies.
You were hunting with the same guys we were a couple weeks ago.
So I actually, while I was there, I hit my 100th day in New Zealand.
Wow.
100.
That's impressive.
That's pretty.
Yeah, that's good.
In 3 years.
Really?
So I've spent 100. This year I've spent.
That's a whole summer.
I've spent 50.
More than a summer.
50 this year.
Wow.
I love New Zealand. Honestly, it ranks very.
That's what I was going to ask you. You've been all over the world. You've hunted all these different animals and places. What species and what animals stand out in what location?
New Zealand just has. It has everything. It has awesome fishing. It has waterfowl. It has. You can. So much public land, you know what I mean, that you can go to, and there's no tags. You can do. I really love hard mountain hunting. You know what I mean? You have to work for it. How do the
mountains compare to other mountains you've seen?
They're so steep and so big, and they're endless. I'm telling you, you really haven't seen New Zealand until you've flown over New Zealand. I've done a couple like scenic flights with people over New Zealand where we fly for like hours in a helicopter, and just mind blowing the amount of mountains. I mean, just as far as you can see in every direction, and it just looks. All of New Zealand just looks like postcards everywhere you go. I mean, the rivers and the mountains and the snow caps and how green everything is and the amount of animals. I mean,
you know what surprised me about New Zealand? I expected it to be sort of tropical Hawaii-ish in my mind. And it ended up being like more Lord of the Rings. Like literally. Like there's a reason, right? But I didn't realize when I saw those Southern Alps, like what you were describing, how it looked like
glaciers,
Mongolia. Like you were saying, like it looked like Kyrgyzstan or these mountains I see. Like I've watched Uncharted now with Jim Shockey, bunch of those episodes, and he goes to crazy places and almost gets beheaded as well and stuff. So, but I see those places, and New Zealand looked a lot like that when I got there.
Yeah, so, and I mean, I haven't even hunted the gnarliest stuff. Like you definitely see guys in Adam Greentree. He was just in some
Adam,
gnarly stuff. But the thing is,
Adam,
there's so many
he
animals.
Dropped his bow and his pack and stuff off a cliff.
Oh yeah, there's so many animals that we were always getting into awesome, serious amounts of animals before we were even getting to the top. You know what I mean? We couldn't even get into the top before we were bumping animals and getting in animals, and so I mean it's
well, that's one thing that's
there's a lot of opportunity
about New Zealand, and is that there are no predators on the island.
Zero,
except for humans.
Well, so there's the hawk and the feral cat.
Oh, dude, which I saw a hawk killing a feral cat and eating it. That's
awesome.
Badass.
That is awesome.
So,
but I mean, neither of those are doing anything to the tar and chamois and red deer.
No. And one thing that was interesting too is to find out that New Zealand has a lot of market hunting. I didn't know that. So
meat hunting.
Yeah, meat hunting, market hunting, where commercial dog food or
all going to
or
Germany. Like, I think
they
Europeans.
Anybody can just. It sounds like can just go out, hire a helicopter, machine gun, shoot a number of red stag that are on public land.
Yep, I think you might. There's probably some
permits,
probably some permits for like the commercial, but But I mean, like here where you would see cows.
Yeah,
there you see paddocks of red stags
everywhere.
Of females they're breeding for meat,
which is interesting because you see all of these stags in fences like cattle, but they're just cleaner and they don't stink.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty interesting to see. It's actually kind of refreshing to see, in some ways, stag instead of cattle.
I know what you mean.
It just.
No, you're right. Everything. Yeah, they're not. They're even the stags are like clean.
When they poop, they're like little pebbles.
They're not like covers.
They're not like a big cow pie of nastiness.
You see a dairy cow and you're like, oh man, I never want milk again.
Yeah, I mean they are gross looking. And you got this svelte, like fit stag in these fences, and when you approach the fences, they run away to the corner, away from the edge. You know, they're not like cows that like come to the fence like, "What are you doing?" And so, but it was also a little bit disturbing because it's like seeing elk, like what you picture as a wild animal, inside of a fence, and you're like, that animal should be free.
Yeah,
you know, where a cow, you're like, that cow doesn't care if he's free or if he's in a fence, he's too dumb.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more,
it's different. Yeah, I guess I definitely wouldn't think of the stags and the cow. You know what I mean? It's the same thing, even though that's what they're
totally different temperament, like everything. So different about them. But but that was interesting. But I did learn from Sam. He was telling me that, you know, they'll come in and they'll shoot. I think they need to shoot a certain amount per hour to cover the cost of the helicopter and make it worth it based on the per pound of meat that you get from like a stag.
Yeah.
And so, when they fly out and they shoot game from a helicopter and then they come back and pick it up and round it up for commercial processing, and they do that on public land, and it makes total sense too from an ecological and environmental perspective because these animals are invasive. They've
got to. I think when I was reading up on the tar, when they introduced I want to say the tar went somewhere from like 100 to some 50 to 100 to 100,000 animals in like a 5 to 10 year span when they first introduced them.
Maybe. I don't know. I know now that the New Zealand Department of Conservation.
Yeah.
Which is like,
what do they estimate it at now? Do you know what they
their goal, according to their website, is to try to keep the tar at 10,000 or below.
Really?
Countrywide. 10,000 tar or below.
Yeah, I don't know
that they're achieving that because it seems like there are tar.
No, and see that doesn't sound right to me.
No, I'm just saying.
I think I saw 10,000 where I was.
That's what I was going to say. Is like, I mean, that was what it said on the site, and that was sort of the management objectives is 10,000 tar. But so how are you going to take out 10,000 tar? So it costs money to fly over and just shoot them with helicopters, right? Gunships and just shoot them, right? And that's what they could do, but that's paid for by the people's money, taxes.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Right. And then you've got hunters, though, that will come in and hunt them and do the same thing. Mm-hmm. Only now you're making thousands of dollars having someone else pay to
take care of your problem.
Exactly. But at the same time, if you shoot them all with a helicopter, then you don't have this lucrative income stream from people coming in from all over the world to go and chase them, right?
And I think they're starting to see that now because I've heard people talk about that they're going to start not making people pay, but like hunting licenses, you know what I mean? And just generating some more funds, even though there's a lot of funds being generated from hunting. It's a pretty hot spot on the international map right now.
Right.
But the article that I read, it said the tar got up somewhere around 100,000 and then they helicopter coaled them way down and they said that more stable would be around like 30,000.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which sounds more in line with but I don't know.
I think Sam was saying that New Zealand is the same size as like the state of Colorado. Like it's the same land mass, roughly. Something like that.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong, but I think that's what Sam said. So you're talking about a state that big, and I think Colorado has somewhere around.
They have the most elk.
Yeah, I think they have somewhere around 150,000 elk.
Yep, sounds about right.
And so you're looking at a country about the same size with just insane mountains that has tar. I mean, you're talking maybe, let's say 30,000, 40,000 tar in that same space. I don't know. These are just numbers. We don't have a clue what we're talking about. We should probably stop throwing out numbers. But
yeah, we probably should.
There's a lot of tar.
And they're also in pockets. You know what I mean? It's not like if you go there, there's not tar and chamois on every mountain. There's different areas. There's chamois areas and there's tar areas and there's usually.
And there's no tar on the northern island.
Nope. And usually in those areas you'll find, pretty big concentrations, which at least the places that I've been, usually there's a pretty big concentration of animals. But there are definitely, you can't just go there and go on any mountain and it's going to be crawling with tar and chamois. Right. You definitely have to know where you're going because the country is insanely big.
Well, and I think when the country's flat, it's so big. But when you have a mountain that goes straight up, straight down, straight up, straight down, the surface area
if you were
makes
to,
it feel like three
If
islands.
you were to lay New Zealand out, I'd be curious to know how big it is.
Exactly.
Because it would get way bigger.
Huge. Yeah, totally different. I think people don't realize when you're talking surface area how much that is. Like Japan, I lived in Japan for 2 years, and it's something 80% mountainous. 80%. Steep mountains. And so you think Japan, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. They picture these big cities. Well, 20% of it's kind of flat, and that's where the population
people
lives.
are. Yep.
Yeah. But you can get up in the mountains in Japan and see some monkeys and some pretty wild critters. You see deer.
Ooh, I have heard that China is about to reopen.
Really?
Yep. And there's some crazy animals, some real crazy animals.
I did listen to I listened to a podcast on Ranella, I think, on Meat Eater.
Yeah.
Where they were talking about China and managing animals in China and stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of I don't know, it goes both ways, but I do think there's a lot of places that are coming around seeing, the big picture on how.
So you've hunted and you've seen the behavior of, and you've hunted lots of different species. I've done a fair bit, but mountain animals less of. I've always been a huge mountain goat fan. Like, I love goats. I think goats are badass, and mountain goats especially, and the way they got their little horns and their stocky bodies, and they go straight up these cliff walls. I just think they're awesome.
Yep.
Well, their population is not that large. Like, when you go to Canada, I don't know how many goats live there. If you go to a state like the size of Colorado, how many goats are there? I would wager there's far more tar in New Zealand than there are goats in Colorado.
Yeah. I would definitely say that's true.
And where else can you go to have a goat hunting experience for the price you can in New Zealand?
No, it's half the price of going to, BC and hunting a goat.
I think it's even less. Or can
Well, it would be what I'm saying is because in BC you've got to use an outfitter.
You have to.
And so if you went with an outfitter in New Zealand, it would be about half the cost.
Yeah.
And then there's other ways if you want to
DIY.
if you put in the time, there's definitely a lot of guys that go over and do it yourself. There's plenty of land and plenty of places. I think
that's what Green Tree did this last time.
Yep.
He went.
Yep. You just gotta do your homework, and there's definitely guys out there that will. So
my question to you though is, this is my first time hunting tar. Okay, you've experienced that, and you've experienced a lot of other animals. What do you think of tar? What do you think of them?
Oh, I love it. I do love hunting tar. They're where they live. Mm-hmm. I love those mountains in New Zealand, and there's really multiple hunts within tar. Early in the season they're down in, what is that nasty stuff called?
That Matty-Gary.
The Matty-Gary. I should know that.
Matty-Gary.
So down early in the year, all the bulls are in the Matty-Gary, and some of them were even in the Matty-Gary this last time we were down there. But usually,
we were there a week before you. You got there the day we left, and they were all over in the Matty-Gary.
Yeah, but there were also some further down the canyon, up the hill, the females.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Up in the snow. So really,
we saw some bulls up in the snow. A big bull up in the snow that Sam and I.
And the style of hunting is completely different in the two places. You know what I mean? You could be up in the mountains.
It's like hunting the plains of Alberta.
Yeah, you could be up
mule
in the
deer,
peaks.
and except for tar, and then you could be in the snow glacier.
Yeah, the day before, I was filming Aaron. We shot his tar, and we went on a hike. I think we climbed up at least about 3,000 feet, just straight up, all the way up into the snow. And we shot this big bull that was just up there. I mean, he had pus pockets all over his sides from hooking each other. Yeah, just fighting off other bulls. And he had all of his females. And I mean, they're puffed up like a lion. That's the only way I can describe is the way the guides describe it is they're like, we're looking for bears. And when you see one of these tahr,
Bear of the mountain.
the way it walks like a grizzly bear. And that mane, they puff it up to impress these females, and they stick their tongue out. They walk around with their tongue out, and they look like an African lion, and they're walking like a bear. And
Dude, their shoulders roll, and all that hair on the mane like ripples.
Yeah, so
There's no other word except badass. Like, they make mountain goats seem less badass now.
And
now that I hunted
now
tahr.
that I'm describing this, did you hear what we just said? It looks like a grizzly bear, lion. Mountain goat.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome. It's so awesome. And
they're way more aggressive from what I could tell.
Yeah.
Even toward people.
Posturing and yeah.
Even toward people. So I expected them to be like a mountain goat, freeze, kind of look at you, kind of wonder. Yeah. Even that they whistle, they blow, but there's a whistle in there, like a shh.
And they also, I'm trying to remember those bulls make a noise, kind of like a grunt. And
yeah. But
man, they're awesome.
What I noticed was, I'm trying to describe it like to people that are asking me about it. Let's say you sneak up on a tahr, right, and it doesn't quite know what you are. You get busted, and it sees you. A lot of times they just bolted. Like, see ya, goodbye, good luck. But there were times where they were like mad, like aggressive mad. Like, what are you and what are you doing here? And I am the tough thing here. And instead of running away, they would kind of like, they stomp those front legs. Did you see that? Mm-hmm. They stomp their legs and they would kind of roll their horns and their mane and everything. And they jump right and they jump left and they jump right and they jump left, slamming their legs down. I was like, it looked like a gorilla, like pounding its chest and like thumping the earth next to you. And it was kind of like a challenge in a way. I was like, that's cool. That's super cool.
And man, they're just,
I don't see
there's
a ram
bunch of
do
different
that.
things. There's also some that are curious too. You can get those ones that are just
they come right in.
Yeah.
We had one come right in until he hit our wind and then he was gone. But in the fog that happened to us. I feel like though that it's really cool to have an animal that bold, which when I'm hunting, I've seen some sheep and I've seen some goats and been close range, and I've never had him like be bold like that.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if it was just something like me or if tahr in general. I assume what I saw is a representation of what they're like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's pretty neat. I don't know. I'm really impressed. What I was surprised about in New Zealand was, given there's no predators, I just thought hunting would be easy.
No.
I thought hunting fallow, because there's a ton of fallow there. I saw the tahr. They were all running around public land. I just thought you could, I don't know. I thought they'd be easy. And they're very switched on.
Yeah, everything over there is pretty switched on.
I didn't expect that.
Yeah. And I think depending on the seasons.
Do you think it's because they get shot from helicopter and their only predator is humans that they're extra switched on? Or is it just...
That's true. I never thought about that. We are the only thing that's taking them out.
Right.
You know what I mean? And some of those tahr that are 8-10 years old, I mean, they've been buzzed by choppers. I mean, when I was there, after Aaron's hunt, I had one more day before we had to head back to bow hunt. They were culling red stags across the canyon. We could look over there with the helicopter and they were shooting some hinds. Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, even right there where we were hunting, you know what I mean? There was that kind of stuff goes on. Well,
that surprised me because, I talked to, so you were there with Cardrona,
Venator, Cardrona.
Venator, Cadrona safaris. Venator is a new part to the name, right?
Yep.
Like
yep.
recently.
So it's always just been Cadrona safaris, and then Venator is kind of the new housing for everything they got going on.
So we stayed just at the main lodge, like for a day.
Yep. In Wanaka.
Yep. And then we drove out to where the Tar were, which was pretty far, a couple hours out, and then we basically just stayed at a little hotel area.
Yep.
There,
about 30 minutes away from
the hunting.
Yep.
And then each day we head out and hunt and then come back at night, Yeah. And it was really cool. We could have spent the night on the mountain, but it's like, you don't need to. It's kind of, the tar are out in the morning. A lot of times the fog is there anyway. You kind of let it burn off.
And so we would just glass, there's kind of like the central hubs. We went to the same place to where you could just glass those big faces. And, if you were camping, you'd kind of be tied to one area, but every day it can change. I mean, one day, we were hunting the lower stuff on the far right. And then, the next day we saw that big bull up in the snow all the way up in the peaks. And so we went after that bull and just kind of keeps you mobile. You don't really, there's no need to be tied down there. You know what I mean? There's a lot of animals, there's a lot of country. And so
and if you push them out of that one canyon, you got to go to another. Well, each morning we were basically at a spot where we could see like the entire mountain range, and you could just pick where you saw a good bull tar and
so
go,
just
okay,
sit
we're
there
going to
for
zero in on that.
An hour or 2 hours and just really take your time finding one that's in a good position. Finding a good one, finding one that's in, a better position than others, because there's some that, there's plenty. So you actually do. That's one of the advantages when you have. There's advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah.
There's a lot of eyes.
Yeah.
That was tough. Yeah. Like the bull I stalked in on.
That's the same thing we ran into.
There was probably 25 of them, which getting into bow range within 25 tar, not easy.
That's, I heard the other day that someone was talking about how a bow hunter who's very successful. They were like, well, how are you so successful? And he's like, because I'm very picky about the stalks I choose to go on. Yep. And so he might see a mule deer he likes here, and he's like, nope. And he'll be waiting. It'll be 3 or 4 o'clock in the evening, and he still hasn't found one in a spot that he's in a situation where he's like, that's worth going on. Might look the whole day. So he's very good at picking out. Instead, most of us see the one we want and we go for it, right? Mm-hmm. And you spent that time going on a very low percentage opportunity at the end of the day, because you might get lucky, but there's so many eyes and ears. There's so many barriers to get there that it's probably better to, like my friend Brian Broderick says, hunt the spot, not hunt the shot, not the animal. So find a very good stock opportunity and then go on that. Resist the temptation to go on ones that aren't great. And you got freaking close.
I know.
20.
I thought I was going to pull it
15
off.
yards,
because
right?
earlier in the year I'd shot a fallow deer with my bow. Mm-hmm. First stock. And we got this bull, and they were just in these little like slot canyons.
Yeah.
And man, there were tar in almost every draw. Different bulls, younger bulls. The older bulls had more females. The younger bulls had a few, and they were just rutting like crazy. You'd see bulls traveling, going, checking others. You'd see bulls posturing each other. You'd see bulls that just had a female just pinned in the tall grass, and they're just sitting there, you know what I mean, just waiting. And we got in there and dropped down this ridge, and they were on the opposite face, maybe like 80, 90 yards. And that bull bedded down. And so I left Aaron with the camera there, and we got down in the bottom of that draw, snuck around him, dropped down 2 draws behind him, then came over the top and popped up right above him. And it was pretty loud. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That stuff's just not quiet.
Yeah.
And
there's so many eyes.
There was just too many eyes. I mean, it was close.
Because the
you know
bull
what I mean?
didn't
How
know.
it is.
The bull was not. He wasn't looking in your direction.
He wasn't looking. And looking back on things, I mean, obviously now that it didn't always work out. I would have had Aaron, who was filming on the other side of the canyon, just right when he saw us peek over, just stand up behind that camera. And
he's far enough away.
Yeah, we'd been around him enough that we knew that at 100 yards they're not going to blow. It's once you break that 100-yard line, then you're too close, and they all start whistling. They might see you, and they'll
take
whistle.
A few steps,
they'll whistle.
Stop.
They'll stand in place, and the females will start whistling, and the bull's just going to He's not going to
Yeah.
even look at you. He's just going to stand there and just be like counting all the females.
Yep.
And at that time, draw, 20-yard shot. But
Hindsight.
yeah, I mean,
That's what I did in Texas.
oh my gosh,
Last year.
so much fun.
I needed a buck to stand, and I was right in his line of view. I needed him to stand and look some away from me so I could get the shot off. So I asked Sloan to go through the woods, and he got back in there and he's breaking some trees and branches, with antlers and he just pressured the buck until he just stood up and he's looking right at Sloan. I'm at full draw. I'm settling the pin. If I had been by myself and the buck started to stand, the first thing he would have done is done a 360 look around, right? I mean, he's super switched on. He would have just looked in all directions and I'd have been left standing there at 21 yards. He would have just been gone, but because he stood up, focused on something else, it was a game changer, for you to pop over that hill at full draw while they're all looking the other way. Yeah, it would be hard to.
But you got those nannies bedded in every direction. And that's when it's like, we knew it was a Hail Mary, but that's the thing. When there's that many animals, sometimes.
Same thing in
That's
Montana.
the advantage. You can go for those Hail Marys. It's not like, well, here's my one stock of the week. You know what I mean? It's
We'd
like
do 3 or 4 stalks in a day.
Okay.
And then when we'd spook them, they'd run over to where Casey and Sean were, and then they'd get a chance on them, and they'd bump and run up the mountain. We would be up there hunting in that. You just never knew. They were moving.
It's kind of
all over.
chaos.
There were so many. But I was surprised. We did spend one day. We went and bow hunted some stag, and I was talking to the guys there because, there are a lot of guys, especially listening to Gritty Bowman, that are really, they're public land advocates. They're at all possible DIY every chance they get. Mm-hmm. And, but I was sitting there and we went out on their private land that's high fenced.
Yep.
And it's massive acreage. And we were really there because there's so much fog we couldn't hunt the tar.
Yeah.
And so we went down there and we kind of just watched, and I got to see stag on this giant acreage, and there's just a few in this area. And they were really switched on too. It's like with a bow, I could see how with a rifle, you go out and you kind of glassing and looking and stuff. But with a bow, it's really tough because they get hunted all the time, and if they see a single human, they're gone.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Yep. And I mean, it's not what people think it is. I mean, it's not in like a flat field. Like, it's in some steep, nasty, big country.
When you look at where
I've spent a lot of time there, and I mean, there have been stags that I saw. I mean, the stag that I shot, me and Casey and Jordan saw it the first day. Mm-hmm. And we were hunting in the same kind of area looking for these stags on the backside of that mountain and that steep, nasty face. And
the public land is on the opposite side, and they're twins of each other. This private piece and the public land piece. I mean, it's insane country.
Yep. And we didn't see it for, 7 days. I mean, it's big. It's big country.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I noticed was how switched on the stag were, which made they're a lot harder to stalk than I expected within bow range. I mean, they got their head on a swivel. So that was pretty cool but then I'd never seen a stag in my life, like in person, eye to eye. And so you saw some in fences, like with hinds and stuff, and like little bulls that had their horns cut or whatever. But then I saw my first stag, and I was like,
is that not just
holy majestic?
I mean,
it's something like out of Narnia. It's a beautiful, beautiful, majestic animal.
I'm telling you, in March when you're hunting there and the stags are roaring, which is like their bugle, and it's kind of in the mix of like a bugle and
like a
lion roar. Just a deep. It's awesome.
Yeah,
and they're fighting and wallowing. I mean, just like serious wallows, like more so than elk. I feel like almost just really I thought so too. Covered, even you'll see trees and everything. I mean, just destroyed.
They wallow like I think more than elk. But when I got to watch that, I was like, that's a majestic animal. So I talked to Sam and a few of Sean. I was like, from Venator, Cadrona. And I was like, what about, going on to public land on the opposite side? And they were like, well, it's really tough in New Zealand to find a stag that is more than a few years old on public land. Almost never.
The stags are the thing that are, from what I know, the stags are what are shot the most from the helicopter because it's for the meat. You know what I mean? The tar and chamois. I've never seen it much with chamois, but the tar is more of like a deprivation. Like I would say in Texas, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When they're shooting hogs, they're leaving the hogs. You know what I mean? I think a tar is a similar thing. It's like, all right, this is so far out of control. Like this isn't about.
We're just exterminating them.
We gotta take these out. Whereas the stags,
if you're going to use,
there's a value to them for the meat. You know what I mean? And so I think the stags do get shot.
Well, and there's not like a conservation model for the stags.
No, there's
on public land.
There's no management. I mean, you can shoot as many as you want.
Yeah, there's no. So when you're flying over them and you're killing them, with market pressure and money behind it to remove them. So how could a stag reach 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, when you have those market pressures? It's pretty tough.
Yeah.
I mean, with the way that they pull in and sell the meat for hunting. So they're like, yeah, the only places, not the only places, but the places where there's the majestic big old stag is pretty much
places where it's being managed.
And that's all private. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. Like if you want a stag, you kind of need some private access, and and some of that may not be high fence at all. It's still private access. Like it's still private property.
Yeah, no, I think most of the places that even those guys, Sean and Sam, that they go, you know what I mean, in their free time, they're not. Majority of the time, the stag, they're not going on public. They've got, some rancher who's got a large chunk of private to, go and look for those, 6x6, 5x5, 6x6.
And it sounds
stags,
like there are public land areas where you can go and shoot a stag that looks kind of like a young raghorn bull here in the U.S., a bull elk.
There's definitely places. When you look through, it's cool. It's funny to look through.
There's got to be
magazines. You know what I mean? I'm sure you saw some magazines to where you can see, what.
But they basically shoot them with helicopters and pick them up with helicopters and haul them out.
Yep. So there'll be a truck and a trailer, in an area where they're shooting for meat.
They just shoot them and then they strap them up
and then
haul them out.
The shooter jumps out underneath the helicopter and can tie up, multiple animals at a time. Then they'll take them to the trailer and then they'll go process all the meat. Yeah.
It's pretty much, other than the cost of the helicopter, it's pretty much just, just a day's work. Yeah. The animals don't really have a chance of escape. It's a different world, man. New Zealand's a whole, without
it's interesting.
But what I'm surprised with is the challenge in it. In spite of,
no, definitely,
because it's
whatever you're doing from the fallow to the red stags to going up and doing the tar and the chamois in the mountains. It's all work. It took me, it's a week to get a stag, and then
they have the Arapala, or what's it called?
I always try and say this name right. Now you got the wrong name. Arapara. Yeah.
Arapara.
I call them Bob Marley rams.
Okay, Bob Marley rams. But they're a sheep.
Big
old curls.
Yeah, they got like a
big dreadlock.
They got like an argali curl on them, and then they got these dark brown and black, just solid dreads all the way back. They're cool.
Well, I've never been to an outfit as professional as Venator Cadrona Safaris, and Sam and Sean were awesome. You hunted with...
Yep, I've spent 100 days with them. Just filming. And
dude, New Zealanders are hilarious. So how does your wife from Australia feel about New Zealanders?
She gets along really well with that crowd, but it's just...
There's a little tension?
Solid banter back and forth. Oh, yeah. It starts at rugby, and they're going on the rugby teams, and then it switches to... meat pies, and then it switches to...
This meat pie, it looks pretty dang good, but I got a lot of comments from people because I posted one on Instagram A lot of people are like, you think that's good?
But then everyone's got their shops.
Check out Australia. And if you want a real meat pie, go to Australia.
To me, they're both delicious. Wherever. And I actually, it was funny. Tori's mom for my birthday, I really like this. She sent me a bunch of frozen meat pies and sausage rolls that I've got in my freezer. So every once in a while, I break one of those out. And,
dang.
Yeah.
They're good, man.
New Zealand's an awesome place. We hunted with Venator. They got an awesome operation, and it is really nice to have someone that can, they offer everything from, the stags, the fallow, the rams, to you can go do a serious tar, chamois mountain hunt. And yeah, if you just want someone to, if you want to go over there for a week and have it very well organized, super nice accommodations, and you definitely are going to set yourself up for success.
Yeah,
for sure. You know what I mean? And there's also the option for people that if you want to put in the time, which some people don't have the time, you know what I mean? And you probably need to stay there for longer if you want to do it this way. But, there are ways to do it yourself.
Yeah.
There's definitely opportunity.
Well, one thing I will say is the food at Cardrona is, it was like so heavenly, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like, even the stuff that they pack for us to take into the mountains.
Robin is heaven sent.
It's like having your own personal, chef that's off the charts.
I know.
Breakfast, everything had a good dessert to go with it.
I'm going from there to Mongolia, where it's like 100% food poisoning every meal. It's like, man, New Zealand really is awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. But I will say, now I'm still can't get tar out of my mind. They're just a neat animal, and I still want to go on a couple mountain goat hunts. But
the next progression for you, once after tar, I'm sure in the next 2 or 3 years, you'll feel that. But I don't know. There's some animals I could just hunt every year. That's probably one of them. But we're gonna get.
What's the next progression?
Ibex.
Oh, really?
We're gonna do an Ibex, which is in the goat family, and you'd love it.
So what is it about Ibex?
Oh, everything. It's like the tar and the mountain goat on steroids, and they're got these awesome, just sweeping horns.
A lot of bone.
Man, they're just so stocky, and the cliffs they run across. I hunted them in Turkey, and that was awesome. Then I hunted them with Devin Leonard, which that's a film on the rock in New Mexico.
Really?
Did you know this?
Mm-mm.
We did 18 days on the rock in the early season in the summer.
Really?
I think I lost 25 pounds with a bow, me and Devin, and it was.
Is that on Hunt the Experience?
No. We haven't edited it yet. Oh. It's coming.
Okay.
It's one of the shows that we have coming up.
I think I've seen everything.
And it's going to be awesome. But the Florida Mountains, if you're not applying for the Floridas in New Mexico, you need to be for the bow hunt, because that was.
Is that what Zach Griffith did?
Yes. That was every bit of what
hunt has ruined him. That's all that he ever wants to hunt now.
Oh, for sure.
It's pretty hard to draw, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty hard to draw. With that one, the thing that you need to do in New Mexico is you got to put in with an outfitter, because it increases. I don't know. I'm just making up these numbers, but it increases your odds a lot in drawing in New Mexico. So you put in with an outfitter, and the thing about that hunt is you have to have, you really have to have a spotter. It's so steep, and I'm talking. I was scared a lot on that hunt. Just the rocks, you know what I mean? You're climbing on, and you got your bow in one hand, and you're sidestepping on these rocks, and you get up there, and you lose all your visibility. You know what I mean? It's steep enough to where these ibex are bedded in these little cracks. You know what I mean? And they're in caves, and they're coming out of caves, and you need to have some way to try and ambush them. You know what I mean? Or when they're moving back up.
And it's archery only?
They have archery and rifle. The rifle's substantially harder.
Yeah. I think Zach's gone twice, and he hasn't.
Yep. And so Zach did the winter hunts, which everyone said that's the best, just because it's not as hot. We did the October, which we were told is death, and we're going to get killed by rattlesnakes. No, we saw some snakes. I stepped over one snake, but there wasn't everywhere. Like we were told like snake chaps every day. It was way too hot. It was hot. It felt like we were wearing winter gaiters.
I just hiked this hill with my wife and daughter yesterday behind the mountain ops office, and there's a rattlesnake in the trail.
Dude, I thought I saw one yesterday. I've never seen one in Utah.
Really?
Never.
I've been here like a week and I saw one.
But I was running up the trail, listening to a podcast, and all of a sudden, right in front of me, my light hit this eye, and I swear it was a snake coiled up right in the middle of the trail, and I hit the skids, and it was one of those little night birds. I don't know, whenever you're on the trail at night, but I was sure it was a snake. I was like,
so Ibex.
Huh? I love everything about the Ibex. Like the sheep hunting is awesome, but man, every time we go on an Ibex hunt,
how much is an Ibex hunt?
Okay, so
they're going to range, of course, from place to place.
They're going to range.
Spain versus.
If we're going to do it with a bow, Spain is by far the most.
That's
the most bow huntable.
Like my friend Rihanna Carey did that.
Most bow huntable and the cheapest. The prices range because I think in Spain it's kind of based off an inches thing, which it's whatever. I don't care. I mean, the smaller ones look.
That's where I shine. I don't care. Like when they were talking about great. Tar, I was like, "That's big enough. That's big enough. I don't care. I'll shoot that one." Like any tar with a bow, I'm like,
okay,
I don't care.
I got to talk about a few instances. So first, we're stocking up Aaron's rifle hunting, and I've got my bow. I'm filming, and I have my bow, and so Zim's like, look right in front of us. He's like, there's a tar. And he's like, it's a real old female. And I pull up my binos, and there's just these horns in the grass. It's one of my favorite pictures. I posted it.
I saw that. It's on your Instagram channel. People should go and look at it at
Dallas Hemeyer. So Dallas Hemeyer, and then Hunt the Experience. And it's 12 years old. I mean, this female is just ancient, just stacked age rings, and I love that. Like age,
so I imagine
and
she doesn't
character.
Quite have the mane like a male would.
No.
But she's
not even no mane and very small. Like they seem like they're a third of the size. The females.
Yeah, but the age class, dude.
And I was like, Sam. I was like, I want to shoot this one. I was like, I really like just a really old animal that she's probably older than any of these bulls. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I was like, that's what I like. I was like, I would do a full mount on her just like I would do on a bull, and maybe someday I'll mount a bull next to her and have some little mountain scene. You know what I mean? And Zim's like, no, we're not shooting it. And I'm just devastated. I'm like 12 yards. I'm like, man, I think I can even make this shot. And so then we go a little further, come over the hill. There's an albino tar.
Yeah, I saw
I saw
a bunch of those.
Another young one. And I'm like, Sam, there's an albino tar. I was like, I've never seen anything albino. I was like,
they told us we couldn't shoot the albino ones.
I think they're a lot more expensive. And I was like, I really like that one. Like, that's albino tar. And Zim's like,
I guess there's
Zim's
only...
like, it's a female. I'm like, I'm really not super concerned about that.
You're like, this is my hunt. This is where
he's like, there's a giant 13+ inch bull right up here. And I was
here's
like,
my thing is,
I'll stop.
That's my thing is like, that's where I run into, like, even when I've gone to BC or I've gone to Canada, Alberta, I mean, hunting, whether it's moose, bear, goat, whatever. And, you're with somebody, mule deer, like the guide, and the guide's like, you're totally content shooting like what they see as pathetic because they've been there and done it their whole lives, and you're totally happy with.
Nice 4 points, got a little cheater.
Yeah, totally. You're like,
I got my bow. I'm jacked up
because you're hunting the experience.
Yeah,
not so much the animal, right? You see how I weave that in? You see that?
I saw it. That was good.
But it's true. Like, and so sometimes I struggle with having.
I really have
to
keep my mouth shut behind the camera. because I'm so excited on every single thing we see. Wait, when you and me go hunting again, you saw on the elk hunt.
Yeah.
I'm like, Brian, it looks good. I'm like, the film looks real good. They're like, no, please, let's go for a solid 6 point.
But then, like in certain areas, there are times where I'm encouraged to take an animal, and I'm like, that's not what I want to take. And so, yeah, anytime I'm really independent, and even Aaron can attest to that. And we've hunted a lot together, and Aaron has his style and experience he's after, and I have mine. And sometimes we would like butt heads over that.
And it changes because just like that, I mean, that first Old Nanny, I really wanted to shoot that, and I would have been 100% stoked. And then I went on that second stalk on that bull with my bow and got within like 15 yards. Mm-hmm. And then right after that, we had that bull again at like 200 yards, and Aaron handed me his RMP precision proof research Night Force scope. I mean, and the way we set it up on the bags in the backpack, like, I just looked and the crosshairs were just sitting on it. Just like perfect. Like, all I had to do was pull the trigger, and I would have been going home with an awesome tar. And they were both like, I mean, we had cameras and everything. They're like, do you want to take that? And I sat there for a minute, and I was like, no, it's just not, like, after what I just did, like, I really want to like complete that experience. And I was like, I don't need to just shoot it. I mean, I could, and I would be stoked. You know what I mean? It wouldn't take anything away from it.
First tar.
But it was just, no, I've never shot one.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh.
And
wow.
so I don't, but one of the reasons I can say that and where I'm spoiled at is I've been filming in New Zealand every year. So I know I would go back. You know what I mean? I know it won't be a one time, but
like,
I don't know. It just, I really wanted, finishing it off that way. I didn't want to, I love rifle hunting. And I mean, oh my gosh, it's so nice. It's so nice to have a rifle. Oh yeah. But that just wasn't exactly, I don't know, it wasn't exactly how I wanted to do it. I wanted to go back and try again with a bow, and maybe next time at the end I'll shoot one with a rifle, and that'd be fine. But this time, and also I think more than anything, it wasn't about the rifle. It was that I only had one day, and this has happened to me a few times because I get put in a lot of situations, you know what I mean, where I have the opportunity, and they're like, you know, you're already here, you could buy a tag, and it's like, okay, well, this saves me travel and a lot of things, and I could ship the animal home with the client, and like, there's a lot of ways I can save money here. But
it's kind of
it happened
perk of your job,
and it happened in Tajikistan too. And so it wasn't about the gun with the tar, but it felt like I was rushing it, and I didn't want to rush it. Like when I go on a tar hunt, I knew I only had one day, and if I could get it done with a bow in one day, I would have been fine with that. I'd have been like, stars aligned, that was awesome. But I don't want to just like go out and shoot something just to shoot something. You know, I want to go, if I'm going to get a tar, if I'm there for a week and I try all week with my bow, and then after a week of giving it everything I got, I shoot one with a gun, that would be okay. You know what I mean? But just with one day, just to be like, oh, let's, you know, check this off the list. I was like, no, I want a different experience than this. And so I'll go back and try it again.
Yeah, we hunted for 3 days, morning till dark with bow. And Casey went off with Sean, I went off with Sam, and we got really close and got into some great tar. And I had a few shot opportunities, and they were not easy opportunities.
Yeah.
But that was the experience I wanted. And we hiked and ran and climbed mountains and, you know, really busted our balls and worked hard. And I'd never seen tar before, and naked eye, never been in this country. And so then on the last, but I know the first day I got there, seeing the sheer number in the mountains and the way it's set up, I was like, at any given point, I can just pull out a rifle and take a tar. Anytime.
Yeah.
Like, there's that many bulls.
Yeah, there's a lot of bulls.
That, you know, we may have to hike a mile or two further or over the top of this mountain or whatever, but if you needed to, you could just pick a tar and come home with one, you know? So in the back of my mind, the whole time you're hunting with a bow, it's like, well, if it comes down to it and we don't pull it off with a bow and arrow, we can always get one with a gun before we go home. Mm-hmm. And I have I have no reservations about that at all. In fact, I really liked watching Remy Warren. He would hunt on some of the solo hunter episodes I'd seen. He'd carry a bow and a rifle.
Yeah.
On the same hunt. Because he's like, I only got like 3 days to get it done, and I'm going to try it with my bow. And sometimes you get in a position where you're like, man, I wish I had a bow now. But you brought your rifle out that day. Mm-hmm. So Remy brings both, and this is often in New Zealand. And then if he can't get it done with the bow, then he'll make it happen with the rifle, and he'll come home. And my buddy Anthony, years ago, he switched to a trad bow, and he was hunting with that for a number of years. And he was like, I'm just in for a different experience now. And so he was really successful the first 3 or 4 years, killing everything under the sun with his trad bow. And then then he hit a slump where he went a few years without getting anything. And it was really kind of, weighing him down, and he's getting a little frustrated. And I remember he brought out the compound on a hunt, and he shot an elk, and he's like, man, I forgot what it was like to put my hands on an elk. It'd been so long that I'm skinning, cleaning, the experience of taking the life of the animal, but then breaking it down and bringing it home and eating it. And he's like, I
missed out.
I missed out on some of that. And he's like, to be able to hunt with a recurve, for a week, but then still have the experience of shooting it with a rifle if it doesn't happen and bringing it home, it's kind of the best of both worlds, Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's not an ego thing. I didn't get it done with the bow.
Yeah, I have no problem with either. It was just this time. It was just my only thing was I just didn't want to rush it. Yeah,
yeah. And I got down there after busting my butt for 3 days, and then we got out there that morning, and we only had 3 hours to hunt, and we had to leave. So a few hours in the morning. So I was like, well, it's not how I want to do it. I really want to make it happen with a bow, but I've never seen a tar on the ground. I've never put my hands on this animal before.
Seen that mane.
See the mane.
It's crazy. They're actually,
they
seem really big, but they're not when you get up there. Man,
they're dense.
They're solid.
They're heavy. Like the bone is like moving a little pony. Mm-hmm. It's like way.
But the size, when you skin all that hair off.
Size isn't big, but they're dense. Yeah, they're thick.
They're a really tough animal.
But I sat there, I'm like, I want that experience. I want to skin it. I want to touch it. I want to
complete the.
Yeah, before I go home, and I don't know when I'll get to go back.
Yeah, it's not a close destination.
And so it was like, you get to eat it, you get to do all this stuff. And so that's what I'm like. I haven't hunted with a rifle that much. I mean, I have been on a few rifle hunts throughout my life, and I like hunting with a rifle. But for me, there's still a bit of excitement and challenge in the rifle because I just haven't done it that often.
When you don't do it very often, I remember I hadn't done it for years, and then we finally went got a Weatherby and went to the Thompson Long Range School and, put the Leopold with the reticle in it and just set it up, our first long range gun. And man, it felt like shooting a bow. It did not feel comfortable. You know what I mean? When you're laying down and you're finding it in the scope and you're like, all right, I got to squeeze
the newness
this trigger.
Of it.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a learning curve. It's not, I know for a lot of bow hunters, they think about it and they're like, hey, just pull the trigger. There's definitely more that goes into it.
Well, the same principles that go into achieving a surprise release with a bow go into shooting a rifle.
Yep.
It's like the shooting principles, kind of all that stuff should hold.
The ranges are just dramatically different. Whereas it's like executing a 100-yard shot with your bow is like executing a 1,000-yard shot with a gun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like executing with a gun, there's still a lot of steps. You know what I mean? It's just dramatically
Sam's like,
range.
This tar is 440 yards. And I'm like, okay, how do we get closer? And he's like, closer? Like, this is good. I'm like, I've never shot anything this far, and he's like, it'll be fine. There's no wind. Everything was set. He adjusted the turret on the Leopold. and then hand me the rifle. And so, I've shot enough to get the backpack, everything settled, get in place, and get comfortable behind the gun. And yet my heart rate was climbing pretty good. I was like,
oh yeah,
this is the moment. And I think it's just anytime you're preparing you're there to take the life of another animal and all that, there's so much emotion and so much thought, so much is happening all at once right there.
And your whole week was just building. You know what I mean? Everything is building.
And I have an audience. I have a camera and Sam there, and you're like, okay, well, here we go. And anyway, it's that moment of truth. And so you got to still the nerves, you got to calm down, and then you got to execute that shot. And there's a challenge in it, especially when it's not something you've done very often. So there was a lot. It was a very rewarding experience, even though it wasn't with a bow. Mm-hmm. And I shot that tar, and I was like, wow, that's pretty.
That was pretty cool.
Then we climbed down this giant, canyon.
Oh yeah, I saw where you went, and I was like, that's nasty.
And then we jumped the river, or I jumped it.
And back up.
Sam waded across it. I'm like, come on. He didn't think I could jump it either. He thought I was gonna. I'm like, come on, Sam. I'm up.
He did tell me that you were the most fit of the season.
Yeah.
You were the first one that gave him, like, he's pushing hard, and usually if he wants to, like, burn someone in the dust, it's pretty easy. And he's like, man, he kept right up. He was right there with me.
Yeah, it was
like, I'm not used to this.
Well, that's what was fun about Sam, though, is there was no, well, that's too far. I don't want to climb that hill. Or he's just like, let's go. And I'm like, let's go. And so, yeah, I enjoyed hunting with Sam. What impressed me about Sam is he can smoke a cigarette and keep up. Like, we can go up the mountain.
Beat you up the mountain. And then put a tar on his back and beat you down.
Yeah. I love those New Zealanders, though.
They're awesome.
They have a certain personality that is just... So do the Australians. Like, hate to compare the two because they probably get pissed off. But they're pretty sassy, man.
Oh, yeah.
You're married to one.
I can vouch for that. No, they're awesome. Yeah, and all those guys are New Zealander. Like my family. Yeah. I've spent a lot of time with them, and great people.
Well, going up the other side of that mountain and then walking up to the tar for the first time, it's just like I was thrilled. I was like, look at the mane, look at the body, look at the it's something about the first time you've taken an animal that you've never seen or experienced, but like mountain goat felt the same. It was like surreal. And
the one I had shot was the first, maybe it was the second, you know what I mean? But that going up to something for the first time, I've had a lot of those experiences.
More than me. I mean, you've been around a lot of different species.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like the tar, the big sheep, a lion.
Oh yeah. That's controversial.
Cool. We'll actually, maybe we'll talk about that after. Let's do it after, because I've got two 21-day safaris in Tanzania, which I think a lot of people would consider one of the last. It's wild Africa. Man, it's big, remote, desolate country with a lot of animals and a lot of lions. And I mean, it's a cool, man. I'm telling you, there's something. I read a quote the other day. Have you ever been to Africa?
I have not. And
I know, and Africa. I know you've told me.
My thing with Africa is, it's just like I said about that post the other day about New Zealand. I don't just go on a hunting trip to experience the animals or the wild, because Africa is arguably not as wild as it was, especially South Africa. Everything's fenced, and you know but you go there for so many other reasons, and it's what's left and what's affordable too for some people who want to experience what Africa still has. And a lot of the hunts that you get to go on, I could never afford or go on. You couldn't either.
Nope.
You're there as a cameraman, not as a shooter.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's just.
But there are a lot, but there's also a lot that are, out there. You know what I mean? There's
And
there's
I've learned that,
there's a lot of loopholes around the world. You know what I mean? That you would never even look into.
Well,
'Cause
it
it's
seems
just
like the more likely you are to get machine gunned by a rebel, the cheaper the cost of the hunt. Like,
not necessarily.
but I have noticed, like, some friends of mine, like Adam Yonke from the Journal of Mountain Hunting, he's getting ready to go on a hunt in one of the stands.
Yeah, they're going
to Kyrgyzstan.
So they're going with Brian Martin to hunt Ibex in Kyrgyzstan.
Is it Asian Mountain Outfitters or Asian?
Yep, Asian.
So
yep.
Ibex in Kyrgyzstan.
Yes.
So
there's some of these places where
he's going with our friend Matt Comment.
Yep,
And
I know Matt. Where did I meet Matt? I met Matt on the airplane going to Sheep Show.
Yeah.
And yeah, super cool dude. He had some cool stories, and he was picking my brain on some of these hunts. He's like, yeah. He's like, we're ready to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
And I was like, he already knew this, but the next level is Ibex. Like for an international mountain hunt. I mean, it's just cool. One day you and me are going to go on an Ibex hunt. I can promise you that. I will work this out.
Quick plug for Adam Yonke. They just put out a film, and if you go to the Journal of Mountain Hunting, you can see a sweet bow hunting or rifle hunting goat hunt, but it's like rugged, straight up and down, called Towing the Line.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen it and you like good cinematography and you like a good story and you like the outdoors, that's a pretty gnarly adventure. Check that one out. Did you see it?
Mm-hmm. Super good. They put out some awesome stuff.
So Kyrgyzstan. Right?
Kyrgyzstan. I've not been there, but I have quite a few friends that have been there. Jason's about to go there.
Brian Martin's insane.
Yep. Brian Martin's insane, and he does everything all over the world. He can pretty much arrange most things.
So that hunt, though, I would imagine is still expensive, but it's got to be a lot cheaper than, let's say, Stone Sheep hunt in BC.
I'm going to say with Stone Sheep, fourth of the price.
Of Stone Sheep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how much is a Stone Sheep?
Oh, Stone Sheep. It's absurd. The sheep prices right now.
Yeah.
Stone Sheep are getting close to 50.
Yeah.
It's like 45. So, I mean, a lot, the Ibex are a lot. Someone told me the numbers the other day. Ibex are a lot cheaper than sheep.
Yeah.
And you can get a similar
experience.
That's
you know
how
what
I mean? And
that's how I felt about tar.
That's the poll too.
Yeah, that's how I felt about tar in the Southern Alps of New Zealand compared to the mountains of British Columbia.
Yeah. Like I would say a lot of these Ibex around the world in Mongolia and Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan and some of these other places, you could find a lot for, I would say average 10 grand. You know what I mean? Which is a lot of money. That's definitely still a lot of money. But if you really want to go on like an extreme international experience mountain hunt and hunt a foreign animal, like I would say that's got to be way up there.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean with a little.
How much is tar in New Zealand with a guide?
I'm gonna say around 6-ish.
Yeah.
Is what I was thinking. So it's cheaper than the Ibex.
Yeah.
And that's, like a week-long guided hunt.
It's so affordable.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're comparing it to an alternative option.
Yeah, a lot of these. Yep. So I would say that's definitely a great building block. You know what I mean? If you've drawn a mountain goat or you're never going to draw a mountain goat, you know what I mean?
Mountain goat, what do you think, 12,000 right now for... can you get some for 9 maybe? No? 12? 10?
12 to 15.
Unless you're a Canadian resident.
Yeah. I'm going to say mountain goats are 12 to 15 average in Canada for like a 7 to 10 day goat hunt.
12 to 15.
And so, yep. So if you really want to go experience that mountain adventure, I would say tar is right there.
Yeah, it's pretty
and
tough.
I would say
I
would say the progression after tar,
Uh-huh.
I would say is Ibex.
You're sticking with Ibex.
We will. One of these days we're going to go, and I think you're going to love it. You're gonna be like, man, that was awesome.
Well,
another one is tur.
Tur.
Yeah.
Show me that. Would you get your phone out? What's a tur?
Oh, my goodness.
What's it look like?
I would consider it to be the gnarliest of all goats.
Really?
Yep.
Goats are gnarly.
And I've found places where you can go do that for like 6,000.
Really?
Yeah. So that's another one. Oh, man. Are you ready for this?
Yeah. Hit me.
This one, it's not in the mountains, so it's not going to do good. Look at how stocky and the horns. So, Pedro. And
Yeah.
Pedro shot the world record tur. Did you ever see that video?
No.
So just search Pedro.
Sorry, Pedro.
With a bow.
Pedro was on episode, I don't know, 3.
Yeah, just search it.
Something.
World record archery tur, Pedro. It's incredible. He shoots like a 44-inch tur.
That's a crazy animal. It looks kind of Aoudad-ish.
Yes.
Which is another
do you want to know?
I really want to hunt.
The only thing with tur is, it just in like categorizing them. They have like the Ovis and the Capra. Mm-hmm. The tur is the only one that counts for a sheep and a goat. It's in both categories. Like when you shoot one, you know what I mean? So it has like a mix.
I'm fascinated by
mix of both.
Sheep and goats in general. Yeah, I had my own like pack goats that I used for a few years in the Eagle Cap Wilderness. And when you start trying to identify the difference between a sheep and goat, like taxonomically, scientifically, it's kind of like that line's really blurry, actually, because there are some things classified as a sheep that actually share a ton of characteristics with a goat, and a goat that share a ton with a sheep. And it's like some that are called like the such and such sheep are really a goat, and so on. Yeah. Pretty fascinating if you nerd out on that stuff.
No, I do love the sheep and the goats.
I just like the country that they're in. An alternative, is like you can get into some pretty gnarly sheep-ish country.
Aoudad
goat
hunting.
Country. Aoudad.
Have you ever been aoudad hunting?
No, I mean, Tim Burnett and I have talked about it.
I've been on a few that were awesome hunts.
Yeah.
Really awesome hunts in Texas. And yeah, those are probably even...
He shot one in Texas in the mountains.
Those are probably
Ranella did one
even
in
a little
Texas.
cheaper. I mean, there are places where you can go where, you know what I mean, like the quality.
Yeah, they were saying they were low fence, so they're not really fenced in Texas. That doesn't even... Okay, this is Pedro's world record. That doesn't even look like something that's real. That looks like something out of a sci-fi like film.
Yeah.
I mean, how does it go? How does he carry that much weight on his head?
This is Azerbaijan.
But that's how I feel about...
Just look at the background and look at that animal. Tell me you don't want to go do that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. Dang. That's the thing is...
Eastern tur in Azerbaijan.
You can get into... Let's talk about like a non-goat species you can hunt. So experience the mountains. You can get... In Colorado, you can get up to 12,000 feet and stuff hunting elk in some pretty rugged country. That's epic. It's not...
I've never hunted elk that high, but yes, I know you can. Mule deer, get into some gnarly stuff.
I was going to say mule deer and elk. There are some places out west where you can hunt that country. It's just not going to be for a goat or a sheep. So you're not going to,
You'd still get that same kind of hunt, though.
But you can get something similar, yeah, and it's just an over-the-counter tag, or a two-point draw or something like in Colorado.
Yep.
So there is that, but it just depends on... I always, because I've never had the funds to justify some of these type of hunts, and that I often live vicariously through, like, the hunt experience, like your channel and talking to other guys and following along. For some reason, I've had no interest in hunting sheep. And I think part of that's because just they're so cost prohibitive for me. I can't ever justify that expense when I could go on something that gives me a very close approximation to that experience.
Yep.
And yeah, it's going to cost, but it's astronomically cheaper.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, some guys don't have any desire to do any of that, and that's fine. But you know what I mean? There's definitely guys out there that are looking for that kind of experience, and it is out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you do some research, there's opportunities in the States. There's opportunities.
The other one is New Zealand. Australia is for, I watch Adam Greentree.
So we're actually planning a hunt there in 2020 to go just
really
spike out for like 10 or 14 days and hunt buffalo and bangtang and wild boars and fish in the croc-infested rivers, catching these giant fish. And
okay, so it's funny because I was thinking about this. Like Cameron Haynes and Adam Greentree have a hard time getting Joe Rogan to go to New Zealand because there's just too many things that will kill you there, from spiders and snakes to crocodiles and whatever. New Zealand, though, you're kind of like you're hunting some fallow deer and some amazing.
Right next to Australia. Nothing. You go from the deadliest place in the world
snakes
to like this little paradise.
No
island.
Poisonous, whatever. It's like there's nothing that will kill you. So I think Joe could like drum up the courage and stuff to go to New Zealand and still experience that international mountain kind of hunt and stuff.
Has Joe been on an international hunt yet?
I know he has hunted. Where has he been? I know Joe has hunted. If you call Hawaii international, Axis.
Hey, I want to go do that. After I saw their Insta stories and videos, I was like, okay, now that looks like a fun vacation.
Joe has been to Canada.
Yep,
hunting moose. I know he went up there with Ben O'Brien and Sam Soholt.
Yeah, so he has been up there.
And black bears, maybe. Yeah.
But we got to get Joe Rogan to New Zealand.
That's what I was thinking. That
would be awesome. We would have a good time.
New Zealand is a safe. What did Sam told me? He said New Zealand is like rated the #1 safest destination for Americans to visit in the world.
So we get him there, and then Adam can slowly work on him to transition him to the most dangerous.
What's crazy is they're next to each other, and yet New Zealand was isolated from Australia for 80 million years.
It's a 3-hour flight. I mean, it's not.
And yet over here you have everything that will kill you, from coral snakes in the ocean and sharks and saltwater crocs to freshwater crocs to over here where you have paradise of safety.
But I mean, the thing is, Adam's still alive.
Yeah.
He's got to spend about as much time out in the bush.
Yeah, but
not in the woods, in the bush. In the bush as just about anyone. I don't know. Maybe he's had way more close calls than he leads on. I mean, I'm sure, but
Irwin's not around anymore.
The stingray. You gotta watch out for those stingrays.
Stingrays, you don't want to step on one. They're the thing is people ask
anywhere
me,
you go.
I have family. I come home and the first thing they say is, well, weren't you worried about this or that? And you're sneaking up on a bear, and what if that bear turned around and attacked you? And things of that nature. We're going to stand. We see a grizzly bear walk out, and I mean, you run into these things when you're out. Adam got charged by a grizzly in Montana or Wyoming?
Yeah, in the States.
And so, I think Aaron Snyder and I got charged by a grizzly in British Columbia.
Yeah, I remember you showing me that clip. That was eerie.
Yeah. We're going to publish that clip in July so people can see that.
In the next 2 weeks, we are going to post our bear encounter
really?
In Alaska. And I'm going to go with about equally as spooky.
Really?
I'm going to say there were 4 shots fired.
Whoa. Okay.
So I'm going to leave it at that. But
maybe we'll have the gritty audience vote on which one was more hair raising.
Oh, I'd be down for that.
I'd be down. I'll probably just throw it on Instagram and do a little poll.
It was. I was freaking out. Everyone else seemed to be pretty fine. But when I'm watching this bear at 10 yards, walking at us like there's and then all of a sudden I hear the popping of jaws and look behind me. And there's 3 young brown bear cubs snapping their jaws. And I've seen 9-foot mama bear all week walking the beach. And I'm like, no gun, just got my camera. I've got brown bears on both sides. I'm waiting for the one to come. And everyone's guns are laying on the ground. And I'm like, come on now.
Bravo.
Let's get prepared. I would have already fired multiple shots by now, just up in the air just to try and get something. And it was I got it all on film. Wait till you see it. My
point was, anywhere you go, any hunt you place, you're always going to run into some danger, and that's really why you do it. I'm just being real. Like the mountain hunts, part of it's like the elements, surviving the elements. It's not falling off a cliff to your death. It's enduring the physical exertion required to navigate the country, and then there's all the whole package. But the danger is part of what makes you feel alive.
Yeah, I feel pretty alive.
Although the airplane deal, I'm okay with nature's danger. I do not like the travel danger.
And that's not how. I do not want to go out on some back road in Mongolia where driving on the wrong side of the road or having a plane or helicopter engine fail. Like that's not cool.
Well, and those cliffs,
not looking for. Those, I'm not. I mean, that's
those roads. Yeah, those are scary. So, well, Dallas, it's always a pleasure having you on the podcast.
I've got some.
It's always fun.
We'll podcast again after.
Yes.
Some crazy adventures. One of these times, some nuts is going to happen in Africa. I'm going to bring you a lion charge or buffalo charge.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Some cool stuff.
Just real quick before we close, tell people where they can follow what the content you're producing.
You can follow our stuff on Instagram at Hunt the Experience. You can find us on all of our videos on YouTube at The Experience. And I post even more of just kind of my personal stuff and some of my personal Insta stories on my Instagram at Dallas Hemeyer.
Awesome. All right, folks, check it out. Leave us a review on iTunes if you like this show. And thanks for listening, and stay gritty. Despite our ever-changing, ever-indignant world with its growing ignorance of and indifference to the ways of the wild, I remain a predator, pitying those who revel in artificiality and synthetic success while regarding me and my kind as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood. I stalk a real world of dark wood and tall grass stirred by a restless wind blowing across sunlit water and beneath star-strewn sky. And on those occasions when I choose to kill, to claim some small part of nature's bounty for my own, I do so by choice, quickly, with the learned efficiency of a skilled hunter. Further, in my heart and mind, I know the truth and make no apologies for my actions or my place in time. Others around me may opt to eat only plants, nuts, and fruits. Still others may employ faceless strangers to procure their meats, their leather, their feathers, and all those niceties and necessities of life. Such is their right, of course, and I wish them well. All I ask in return is no one begrudge me, and all of us who may answer the primordial stirrings within our hunter souls, my right to do some of these things myself. What you just heard is a quote from M.R. James. We truly live in a world that is largely ignorant and indifferent to the ways of the wild. And although some regard us as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood, we have the opportunity to change the way these people view the hunter and the hunt. We can share our experiences and nature's bounty with those who employ these faceless strangers. And by so doing, we make a difference, not just for ourselves, but for the wild animals in the wild places we care so deeply about. Never stop sharing your passion for hunting and the outdoors. Our wild animals and our wild places depend on it.